The next topic is the changes during transformation of state. That means solid gets converted into liquid, or liquid gets converted into gas, gas gets converted into liquid, or solid gets converted into gas. So one state is changing into another state. During this transformation, what are the changes occurring? That we are going to see. Now let us see what change occurs when solid changes to liquid. Solid changes to liquid. The first property is movement of particles. What happens to the movement of particles when solid changes to liquid? Look at these pictures. This is solid particles. Here we can see that particles are closely packed. This is liquid. Compared to solid, particles are far apart. So what about the movement? In solid, particles are very close, so force will be more. So movement of particles when solid changes to liquid. In solid, the movement is less, but when solid changes to liquid, the movement is somewhat high, so it increases. So movement of particles when solid changes to liquid increases, because particles are far apart in liquid, so they can move. The next property is distance between particles. This is solid state, this is liquid state. When solid changes to liquid, what happens to the distance between the particles? In solid, distance it is very less, or it decreases. Particles are very close, so distance is less. But when this solid changes to liquid, distance between the particles, compare this, it increases. So distance between particles increases when solid changes to liquid. The next property, attraction between the particles. This is solid, this is liquid. When this solid changes to liquid, what happens to the attraction? Attraction, particles are far apart, so attraction decreases. When solid changes to liquid, the attraction between the particle decreases because they are far apart. The next property is energy of particles. What happens to the energy when this solid changes to liquid? Since they are move as compared to solid, the particles can move here and there as compared to solid. Since they can move, the energy of course increases. Energy ഉണ്ടെങ്കിലേ പാർട്ടിക്കിൾസിന് മൂവ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റുള്ളൂ അല്ലേ? പാർട്ടിക്കിൾസ് ഫാർ അപ്പാർട്ടാണ്. കമ്പയർ ടു സോളിഡ്, ലിക്വിഡിൽ പാർട്ടിക്കിൾസിനിടയ്ക്ക് കുറച്ച് ഡിസ്റ്റൻസ് ഉണ്ട്. അപ്പോൾ ഈ പാർട്ടിക്കിൾസിന് അങ്ങോട്ടും ഇങ്ങോട്ടും മൂവ് ചെയ്യാൻ പറ്റും. അപ്പോൾ അതിൻ്റെ എനർജി കൂടുതലേ ചെയ്യുക. സോ എനർജി ഓഫ് പാർട്ടിക്കിൾസ് increases. The next one is what happens when liquid changes to gas. This is liquid, this is gas. When this liquid gets converted into gas, what are the changes occurring? The first property, movement of particles. Here this is liquid state, this is gas. When this liquid changes to gas, what about movement of particles? We can see that gaseous state particles are far apart, so it can move anywhere without any restriction. So the movement of particle increases when liquid converts to gas. So movement increases. The next property is distance between particles when liquid changes to gas. When liquid changes to gas, I told you that there is no restriction. So particles can move here and there. So the distance between the particle very high. So distance between this particle increases. Distance between the particles increases. The next property is attraction between the particles. What happens to the attraction between the particles? In gas, the particles, there is no attraction because they are far apart. So there is no attraction between the particles. So attraction between the particles decreases. Attraction between the particles decreases. The last property is energy of particles. So what happens to the energy of particles? Since there is freedom of movement of particles in gas, energy of particle is very high. എങ്ങോട്ട് വേണമെങ്കിലും പാർട്ടിക്കിൾസിന് മൂവ് ചെയ്യാം. ബിക്കോസ് ഒരു അട്രാക്ഷനും പാർട്ടിക്കിൾസിനിടയ്ക്ക് ഇല്ല. അപ്പോൾ അതിൻ്റെ എനർജി വെരി ഹൈ ആയിരിക്കും. സോ എനർജി ഓഫ് പാർട്ടിക്കിൾസ് ഇൻക്രീസസ്. The next one is when gas changes to liquid. What are the changes occurs? This is gas particles. Here particles are far apart, but if you take liquid, particles are somewhat closer. So what about movement of particles when this gas changes to liquid? This is gas, this is liquid. So what happens to liquid state when particles changes from gas to liquid? The movement of particles, gas to liquid, it decreases because in gas it is far apart. When this gas become liquid, particles somewhat closer, so movement of particles decreases. The next property is distance between the particles. As compared to gas, distance between the particles less, so distance between the particles decreases. The next one, attraction between the particles. Compare gas and liquid. When this gas, attraction between the particle, there is no attraction. But when this gas changes to liquid, attraction between the particle increases because particles are closer. So attraction between the particles increases. Attraction between the particles increases. The last one is energy of particles. What happens to the energy of particles when gas changes to liquid? Energy of particles decreases because particles are closer, distance less, attraction more. So it cannot move anywhere as in the case of gas. So attraction between the particles decreases, so energy of the particles also decreases as compared to gas. When gas changes to liquid, energy decreases because they are closer. It cannot move anywhere as in the case of gas. The next one is what happens when solid changes to gas. Like, just look at this picture, the arrangement of particles in solids and gas, then only you can understand. The movement of particles. What happens to the movement of particles when solid changes to gas? Solid to gas. So of course it is very clear that the movement of particles is very high, so movement of particles increases. Movement of particles increases. The next one is distance between the particles. When solid to gas, movement of particles increases, so distance between the particles also increases. The distance is very high. See, solids and liquids, in gas the distance between the particles very high, so it increases. Distance between the particles increases. The next one is attraction between the particles. Since distance between the particles increases, of course attraction will decreases because distance is inversely proportional to attraction. But distance കൂടുതലായാൽ particles അടുത്ത് വരില്ല. Attraction between the particles കുറവായിരിക്കും. അത് അങ്ങോട്ടും ഇങ്ങോട്ടും മൂവ് ചെയ്തുകൊണ്ടിരിക്കും. അപ്പോൾ ഒരു പാർട്ടിക്കിൾ വേറൊരു പാർട്ടിക്കിളിനെ അട്രാക്ട് ചെയ്യില്ല. സോ അട്രാക്ഷൻ ബിറ്റ്വീൻ ദ പാർട്ടിക്കിൾസ് decreases. The last property is energy of particles. What happens to energy? ഇവിടെ ഒരു റെസ്ട്രിക്ഷനും ഇല്ല, അട്രാക്ഷനും ഇല്ല പാർട്ടിക്കിൾസിനിടയ്ക്ക്. തോന്നിയ പോലെ പാർട്ടിക്കിൾസിന് അങ്ങോട്ടും ഇങ്ങോട്ടും മൂവ് ചെയ്യാം. സോ the energy of the particles increase. It is very high. When solid changes to gas, energy of the particles very high because it can move anywhere. So energy is increases.